about the only thing that surprises me more than the amount of people that enjoy listening to me tell our little stories from the South are those of you that listen from overseas. Bless you guys for giving this old country boy the time of day. Speaking of, today's story recommendation comes all the way from Australia. Viewer Kim Parks suggested a legend from here in the South that I hadn't come across yet. It's a short little legend, at least as far as from what I could find from a historical records aspect. The majority of the legend survives through oral history, but the accounts are so strong and unwavering that we have a historical marker to set everything into motion. After the 1794 death of a stranger at Livingston Farm, mysterious noises and clippings of garments frightened Middleway residents for years. Well, if that's not enough to make you stop and say, "Do what?" then I don't even know how you made your way to this channel. Everyone loves a good, strange, weird, or bizarre story. Well, welcome to the American South, where dark legends and haunted history lurk around every corner. Where superstition, folklore, and a touch of backwoods magic blend with everyday culture. Some say, in order to survive. This is Dixie After Dark. We've talked about the strange and unusual historical markers that can be found here before, and today gives us one that should easily make its way to the top of our list. Middleway, West Virginia has it. As the story goes, there was a stranger passing through the area and took up board at the home of Adam Livingston. It was apparent that the stranger was bad sick and probably requested shelter out of sheer exhaustion. The stranger was ill enough that he requested that a Catholic priest be brought to him. But as we've discussed here before, the practice of Catholicism was few and far between in the American colonies. The majority of the people in the fledgling United States were Protestant, fleeing religious persecution. And it's said that even though it was hard enough to find a Catholic priest, the devout Lutheran Adam Livingston didn't put a lot of effort into the search. Over the next few days, the unnamed visitor to the Livingston farm died from whatever sickness he carried with him and was buried in a nearby cemetery, but without any Catholic rites or ceremony. After the death, strange events began to plague the Livingston farm. Candles would no longer stay lit in the room where the stranger died. Unexplained noises began to be heard as well. The sound of hoofbeats could be heard, even though no passing horses or carriages were in the area. People claimed to hear the sounds of breaking pottery as well, but anything broken was never found in the house. Things spread from the room throughout the house, too. Embers continuously popped and leapt from the hearth, and the sound of scissors or shears were described throughout the house as well. And it was these sounds that the majority of the legend focuses on. As a matter of fact, physical events accompanied the sounds of the scissors. The Livingston family started to discover clothing and other fabrics throughout the house with crescent moon shapes cut into them. According to the oral histories of Middleway, these events lasted for years. One of the most retold events has a woman visiting the Livingston family, and fearing that damage would come to her favorite silk scarf, she removed it and wrapped it in a handkerchief to keep it safe. After her visit with the Livingstons, though, she was relieved to find that the handkerchief was untouched, but when she unwrapped it to receive her scarf, she found it cut into shreds. Inside, the untouched, fully intact handkerchief. Adam Livingston finally had a thought. Maybe he should have put a little more effort into finding a Catholic priest after all. So he finally found one, and only a little more than 13 miles away in Shepherdstown, West Virginia. Curious, as Shepherdstown, West Virginia is known as a haunted hotspot to anyone familiar with paranormal investigations. Livingston made contact with Father Dennis Cahill, a Catholic missionary in West Virginia from Ireland. Father Cahill had already founded several parishes in Maryland before making his way down to West Virginia. Livingston explained the situation, and both men agreed that the stranger that had died there must have been Catholic. So Father Cahill agreed to accompany Livingston back to the home to check things out for himself. At the family farm, Father Cahill set about sprinkling holy water all across the property, and legend states that some of the manifestations at the farmhouse changed after that, although stories don't shed a lot of light onto what those changes actually were. Even so, the story has it that shortly after the blessings with holy water, a substantial amount of money that had gone missing from the family's belongings finally reappeared, sitting out in the open, right in the middle of the home's threshold. The sudden reappearance of the lost money on top of the reported changes in the alleged hauntings were enough to convince Father Cahill that something was, in fact, going on at the Livingston farm. Something that he may need to call backup in for. Father Cahill briefly left the area, but then returned with Russian Catholic priest Father Demetrius Galitzin. Father Galitzin is known in history as, quote, the Apostle of the Alleghenies, and has been in consideration for sainthood by the Catholic Church since 2005. Father Galitzin was somewhat familiar with the story of the Livingston farm, having heard murmurs about it already. By that time, the haunting had become known in the area as the Wizard Clip, referring to the strange cuttings that happened to clothing and fabrics there. After a brief investigation, Father Galitzin was also convinced of something supernatural going on at the Livingston farm, so he conducted a Catholic Mass within the home. Father Galitzin wrote about his findings to Bishop John Carroll, as well as in other writings, and by all accounts, the hauntings stopped after the Mass was performed. Well, so to speak. The legends and oral histories of Middleway, West Virginia, go on to tell that the hauntings did not stop completely, but it's interesting to note that after the Catholic Mass, it was no longer referred to as a haunting, but rather, events afterwards became known as the Voice. It's reported that in the days after Father Galitzin left, the Livingston family began to hear a voice, but not in a haunting way. Adam Livingston described the voice as a, quote, consoling voice. It first appeared waking Adam up from sleep one night. The voice was accompanied by bright light, and it instructed Adam to wake up his entire family, bring them all together, and to begin praying. Adam did so, and the voice stayed, guiding the entire Livingston family in prayer that night. According to the Livingstons, the voice stayed with them for 17 years, leading them in prayer services, and ultimately leading the Livingstons to the Catholic faith. Adam wrote that the voice guided them, quote, in the most simple yet eloquent manner. Adam Livingston's assumption was that the voice belonged to a soul in purgatory that was working out some sort of penance, and perhaps it was even the soul of the stranger that had died on the property years earlier. Now viewed as a miracle in Livingston's eyes, they deeded 35 acres of their property to the Catholic Church in 1802, with the intention that the field could be used to help sustain a local priest. The property became known as the Priest's Field, and was used as such for the next 150 years. In the 1970s, though, the Catholic Church started work on the Priest's Field Pastoral Center, a retreat-like venue, and still operates as such today, where one can go to become closer with God. The organization does not distance themselves from the original legends. In fact, I find it curious that they still use the crescent moon in their logo, tying them in still with the history of the wizard clip. According to the Priestfield Pastoral Center website, the original haunting was a demonic possession, and that the property was freed of it after the work there by Father Cahill and Father Gallatin. They don't lay out how the property became to be under demonic possession, though. Perhaps it had something to do with the unknown stranger that died that day on the property. Perhaps he was suffering from some sort of demonic oppression or possession even, and the demon was unleashed on the property when the man died. That's just me speculating, though. Or maybe the stranger was just truly sick, but a devout Catholic whose soul couldn't rest since he did not receive his proper last rites or a Catholic burial. Not to say that this was absolutely necessary, but for that particular individual, perhaps it was. It's an interesting tale, though, to say the least, and one that has me wanting to visit the property myself one day. I don't believe it was necessarily the involvement of the Catholic Church itself that changed things on the Livingston farm. Well, not that it was the Catholic Church alone that could have done anything about it. Maybe that's a better way to word it. But still, it's a tough one to argue. I've seen people freed from demonic possession personally, something that scared the crap out of me, and there wasn't a Catholic in sight. Still, though, there's something to be said about how it all played out. If I really had to throw my 2 cents in, I'd say that it was the devoutness of the 2 priests that came to help the Livingston family. And there's something to be said about the older Christian traditions, although I currently lean more toward Orthodoxy than Catholicism myself, but that's a whole nother can of worms. Although the original Livingston home is no longer standing, the people of Middleway still mark the events with markers throughout the town, containing the images of scissors and crescent moons as a reminder. Subtly, though, a welcome break from the in-your-face touristy types that we've come to know in larger areas. As far as the area and events known as the Wizard Clip, I believe it for the most part, mostly because the land continues to operate as a religious retreat even today. Those modern-day places of pilgrimage are becoming few and far between, at least here in America. I like to see it survive. I like to see that the Catholics have not shied away from the original legend of the place. But most of all, I like to see that the church isn't using the legend as its sole marketing approach to draw in visitors. After looking into so many of what I call tourist trap haunted places, the layout of this one through history just seems to add more validity to it. at least for me.